Good morning, good afternoon. This week is Parshas Boy, or Parshas Bo, depending on your accent. And we are continuing with we're finishing off with the Makkos, and we are having the beginning of redemption. So to give an overview, first of all, of the Parsha, and then we can say, yes, we've done it, and then we'll get into some things besides that. So first of all, we have the introduction of the eighth. We have this Parsha, we have Makkos 8, 9, and 10, the locust, the darkness, and the killing of the firstborn. In addition to that, we also have the introduction of the laws of the Karban Pesach. We also have, before the introduction of the laws of Karban Pesach, we have the ideas of Rosh Chodesh, of creating a calendar, a Jewish calendar, which we're going to get into in a second. And so that's kind of, yay, we did the whole Parsha. We end up having the last 3 plagues. We bring the Karban Pesach, and right, well, it's not as simple as that, obviously, right? So, and the Parsha finishes off with the mitzvah of Peter Rechem, that a firstborn animal needs to be is holy, and the mitzvah of tefillin. No, yeah. Yeah, and we'll finish off with the mitzvah of tefillin. So there, yay, we got the whole Parsha. Now we're going to go move a little bit slower and go through the Parsha together. One of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of weeks is really highlighting personal redemption, not just Egypt and global redemption. But we've really been having a focus on personal redemption, because that's really what we're talking about. The Parshas are very much this place of it's not just, oh, once upon a time this happened, and I know we talk about this often, but I think it's important to repeat it again. But it's also very much how does it help me? How do I relate to my life, and how does the lens of the Parsha help me deal with the things that are going on? So here we are. So the first thing, which I think is, the first pasuk already gives us our first instruction. Vayom Hashem al Moshe bo el paro ki ani hichpaditi et libo ve'et lev avadav leman shisi osaisai el b'kirbay. So the pasuk opens up, our parsha opens up where Hashem says to Moshe, bo el paro, which means come to Paro, and because I have hardened his heart and the heart of all his servants, in order to show them all my wonders in their midst. And immediately there's questions galore. But for the purpose, we're not going to go through all of them, but just something I think that's super important to highlight for ourselves. We know that all through the Makkos, we've had sometimes Hashem has said Lech el Paro, sometimes he said Bo, and in this case, when he's talking about giving the warnings, he said Lech or whatever, all different words. Here Hashem uses the expression Bo el Paro. Now Bo means to come. It doesn't mean, right? Lech means to go, and Bo means to come. The implication of go is like, I'll wait here, you go, do your thing, and come back, right? Bo means come, we're going together. Bo imadi, some of them are say, come with me. We're going to go face Paro together. So the first thing, I mean, really for ourselves on a very personal level, is this place of, we all have Paro in our life. Paro, that place of constriction. We know that Mitzrayim is Meitzar Ugvul. It's a place that limits us. It's a place that holds us down. And Paro is the channel. It's the orif. It's the neck that really constricts us. And we all have something in our lives, and that's what it does to us. It constricts us, and it slows us down, and it misdirects us, as our neck does often. And when we have to come up against our own Paro, it's a very scary thing to do. We never really come to Paro with like, yeah, we could do this. Like sometimes we do, but very often when it's a real deep thing, we're nervous and we're hesitant. And even though we've succeeded before, we're wondering, will we be able to do it again this time? So Hashem is telling us, Bo el Paro, I'm coming with you. You think you're on your own, you think you're doing this and you have to, get it all yourself. It's not true. Hashem says, I'm with you. We're going to do this together. Like, in the vernacular would say, I got your back. Hashem very much is telling us that I will come, you come with me, essentially, not even I will come with you, but we will go with Hashem, and therefore we have the power to confront, and we have the power to not just confront, successful in whatever it is that we need to take care of, because it's not only up to us. When it's only up to us and how much I do and how much I prepare and how much I can, get the right, then we're limited. And then very often it's, we're stuck. Hashem says, I'm with you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to go with you. I will give you, I will help you find the words, and I will be there, guiding you. Then it's a real confidence booster for us. It's a real, we can do this. We got this. And it makes it less scary. It doesn't mean that we just get to sit back and say, okay, God, you got this one, so you take care of this, and I'll just, drink coffee and whatever, or what, we're gonna just sit back and let it happen. That's not what it is. We need to go, and we need the confrontation, and we need to be prepared, and we need to give it the best we have that we can. But on the other hand, we definitely with us, and therefore we have that extra ammunition on our side, which is very powerful. That's the whole Parsha is starting with that. The whole Parsha is starting with that place of Hashem's with us. Hashem's coming with, have the power to confront whatever is going on. And we talk about, we're not going to get into the conversations of free choice. It's a bigger conversation, which will take all of our day and next week as well, which we're not going to get into. How do we, what is the story with free choice? If Paro's heart is being hardened, how can Hashem punish him? Like I said, I'm raising the question. We're not getting into it right now. There's lots and lots to talk about, but we're not going to do that right now. And one of the things that the pasuk talks about here, pasuk Beis, verse 2, it tells us, "Leman tisaper ba'azni bincha uvnei bincha as asher salalti b'Mitzrayim," that you should tell your children and your children's children how I made a mockery of Egypt and all the wonders and everything that I did, that they should, in order that they should know that I am Hashem. And this place of giving over, of telling our children what our story is, what our background is, where we came from, what we're doing, all of those are very, very important. And if we could maybe extrapolate a little bit, we're not only talking about the place of telling the story of Egypt. We know Pesach, that's what we do. We tell the story of Mitzrayim and the Exodus and what happened to the Jewish people and how Hashem saved us and all that is, yes. But the other part of the conversation, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Alav Shalom, spoke about the difference between history and memory. And history starts off with it's his story, but memory starts off with me. It's mine. It's who I am and where I come from. And I think that part of the thing that we need to be able to do is to know where we come from individually, not just we, the Jewish people, but me, Rivka Marga. Where do I come from? What is my family background? What did my parents and grandparents go through? Because all of us have a story. None of us just emerged, from no place. We all have history. We all have memory, and that's really we're more into memory than into history. We want to remember Zecher, right? That idea of memory. It's our story. It's our personal story. So yes, we, the Jewish people, have our general story, but we, the individuals, also have a story. And I think it's very important to know where we came from and what was done in our family, and because you'll go back a few steps. There isn't a family in any, no matter where your family tree, wherever you are, where you think, we're not, ever go back a generation or two or three or four, and you will find incredible people who, with incredible values and miracles that got them to be where they are, and that's why we are where we are today. So that's just a little plug. If you have older living relatives, this is the time definitely to brush up on your personal family story and to find out where you are and where you come from, because it's important. It's very important to know where we're from, so we know the power that we have going forward. Okay, so then Moshe and Aaron go and they continue and they talk to Moshe about, they speak to Paro about the locusts that are going to come and and then so then Paro's like, he's worked to plate 8, so he had some history over here, and first they send Moshe and Aaron out, and then the servants of Paro in verse 7, they say to Paro, like, Yalla, let's get out of here. Let's leave. Let them get out of here. Right? Well, that's not what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, how long are these people going to be a stumbling block for us? Send them out. Let them go serve their God. Don't you know that Egypt is lost? So Moshe and Aaron are brought back, and Aaron they start, and then Mahara's like, okay, who's going to go? Blah 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 blah. And in chapter 10, verse 9 is this upcoming week is the week of Yud Shvat. It's a day that the previous Rebbe passed away and that the Lubavitch Rebbe became Rebbe. And I must have heard this from him hundreds of times without an exaggeration. When Paro asks Moshe, who's going? Who is this Exodus for? Who do you need for your service of God? Moshe answers, Binarenu, Bizkenenu Nelech, with our young and with our old we will go, Bivanenu, Bivnasenu, with our sons and with our daughters, Bitzenenu, Bivkarenu, with our cattle and our sheep, Nelech Kichag Hashem Lanu, because it's a holiday for Hashem. And in the conversation of who counts, Moshe says a resounding everybody. Not just, at the beginning, I was like, oh, let the men go, let the older people go. You don't need this, you don't need that. And Moshe's like, absolutely not. Every single person counts, the old and the young, the men and the women, the boys and the girls, everybody. We're serving Hashem and everybody has a part in this. And I just wanted to highlight that just because we live in a generation and we wonder, do we really count? And does it really matter what I do and who I am? And the answer is yes. Absolutely. The answer is yes. You, the individual count, and the way you serve Hashem is important, and it's not complete without you. So, in case we were wondering, does anybody notice? Yes, Hashem notices, and Hashem counts, and all of us are needed in order to do that last push towards a final redemption. We're all part of it. We're all needed to serve Hashem. So, I want to give us a bracha, first of all, that we understand that is our worth and that is our value and that is what we need to do. We need to step up to the plate, each and every one of us in our own way, in order to play our part, whatever it is that we have to do. Okay, and then Parsha, forget about it, it's not happening. And so then they have the plague of the locust that comes in. And now the next thing that I want to highlight a little bit is we have a conversation, then comes a plague of darkness. There's no warning for the plague of darkness, which we started talking about last week. Different plagues have warning, so the plague of darkness has no warning. It's chapter 10, verse 21. Hashem says to Moshe to put, raise your hand towards the sky, and it's going to be darkness on all of the Eretz Mitzrayim. Vayamash chayshach, and it's going to actually turn into like a tangible kind of some kind of tangible kind of darkness. So Moshe does that, and it says Vayihi in verse 22, Vayihi choshech afel b'chol shloshes yamim, that there was this thick darkness in all of Mitzrayim for 3 days. Leiro ish es achiv v'leikamu ish mitachta shloshes yamim, and a person couldn't see their brother, and they could not get up for their place for 3. For the Jewish people, it was light. So the Mepharshim talk about the idea that most of the plagues, in fact, all of the plagues, most of the plagues were for 7 days. And we find that the plague of darkness was, in fact, 6 days. It has 3 days of intense darkness and 3 days of darkness that Rashi highlights that they could not move. Like Kamu Ish Mitachta, whoever was sitting couldn't stand up, and whoever was standing couldn't sit down. And the Mepharshim talk about the idea that the last day of darkness was reserved for the crossing of the Red Sea, which is going to be in next week's Parsha. And so when the Jewish people are going to cross the sea, and Hashem's going to make it dark, keep the darkness the whole night, make it dark for the Egyptians, that's Ki'ilu, the last day of the darkness. So that's one thing, which is just random, interesting, fun fact. The other thing, which is, I don't remember who said this, and I apologize, but when so we're talking about the darkness, and when is it really dark? When do we have real darkness? So I don't remember who said this, and I apologize. It says, Leiro ishes achiv, when we are not capable of seeing our brother, that is the definition of darkness. Now, the Torah is actually describing the state of darkness, a physical state of darkness that it was so dark, you couldn't see anything. We all know we've been in those places where it's been very dark and there hasn't been a little bit of light. And, but on an emotional level, when we're incapable of seeing our brother, when we're incapable of seeing the other, we're incapable of seeing beyond ourselves, then we know that we're in a true state of darkness, and then it's really bad. Then we have, then we really have to start pulling it together, because that's bad. Well, we can't, we're so in our own space that we can't see the pain of another person, the need of another person. Then we have to really figure out how to break out of it, because that's pretty terrible. And then, okay, and now we have over here in Perik Yud Aleph, Hashem talks about, okay, so before Hashem says we have one more plague that's going to happen. That's going to be the plague of the firstborn. But before that, Hashem says to tell the Jewish people to borrow from their neighbors, klei kesef, klei zav, items of gold and items of silver, and Hashem will give the grace of the people on the land, and everybody will be able to get whatever, get it. So that was, I want to stop on this for a second, but I also, let's stop in a second. Okay. So Rashi says that this whole idea of getting gold and silver from the neighbors and whatever is because Hashem promised, Hashem and Abraham made a covenant, in the covenant between the pieces, in the Bris Ben Absarim, that your children will be strangers in a strange land for 400 years, and they will be made to work hard, and then when they leave, they will leave with great wealth. And so Rashi says that Hashem says to Moshe, where am I? He said, He said in Pasuk Beis, Hashem says, "Daber na, please speak in the ears of the people, that they should ask and they should get this." And Rashi says, because Hashem doesn't want Avram to come and complain and say, "Listen, there's slavery. Yeah, we got the slavery, but the reward, we didn't get the reward." So, as if Hashem's afraid of Abraham. There's a lot of conversation about this. I want to bring a couple of points. First of all, in the Sifrei Musar, it talks about the idea, what is this idea of borrowing, right? We're borrowing, you borrow tissue from somebody, you're not giving it back. Everybody clear that you're not giving that one back, right? So what's the point of saying borrow these gold and silver items, because they're not coming back? In fact, there was in the Gemara tells a story of an Egyptian representative who came to the Beis Din, and they demanded reparations for the stuff that was stolen from Egypt. And they said, that many things were taken, and this many years have passed, and so the Chachamim responded and said, okay, let's look at the numbers. Okay, you had X many people serving, as slaves for X many years. So now how many years, how much did you owe them? Add the interest and all of that. And then they agreed to walk away from that kind of that lawsuit, I guess, for lack of a better word. But the truth of the matter is, they weren't giving back the stuff. So what's this charade? What's the charade of saying, I'll borrow it? We're going to borrow it. So the Bali Musar bring one very, very beautiful idea. And the Gemara says that, talks about wealth, whoever has 200, that the nature of wealth is that whatever I have, I'm never happy. If I have 100, I want 200. If I have 200, I want 400. Whatever it is that I have, I always want more. That is the nature of wealth. And so he says, that is a terrible headspace to be in, like to never be satisfied with what you have. People who are just happy to pay their bills and get to the end of the month and not owe money, they will put on their table and pay their rent, they're happy. And the people who have their own planes and whatever, they want more. Like, how do we prevent this place of this need for more? And the Gemara is really describing it as the human nature, that when you have, you want more. So the So the Zadel Epstein explains that they borrowed it, never owned it. It wasn't mine. When it's mine and I have, then I want more. But if it's never really mine, then you don't have that same drive to do more and more and more. And he was talking about this idea that when we look at the world and we look at wealth and we look at physicality, nobody's going to say that you don't have any needs. We do have needs. We need to pay our rent, and we need to, or our mortgage, and we need to, buy food and tuition and all these kind of things. We need all different kinds of stuff. But the question of, can we understand that all of it is actually only borrowed? Meaning we have it, we've had to earn it, we had to work for it. But at the end of the day, it's not about me and about my stuff. It's about what Hashem has given me. We're borrowing it from Hashem, and therefore we are happy with whatever we have, because that's really what we're looking to do. We're looking to not say, oh my gosh, I need more, I need more, I need more. We're looking to say, I have what I need. And in the Hayom, one of the things that the Rebbe brings in one of the days of the Hayom, which I forgot which day, is that the difference between physical and spiritual is that in physical, we always need to look at the people who have less than us and say, wow, I'm doing great. But in spiritual, we need to look at the people who have more than us and say, whoa, I have where to strive for. And I think that this is really highlighting this idea of borrowing it so that it's not yours. You don't end up having that need for more and more and more, and you can really be happy with what it is that you have. One of the things that Chassidus talks about this a lot is that what was this need for borrowing? What was this need for taking? What was this rechush gadol? Don't you think don't you think Abraham would have been like, okay, just stop the slavery, get them out, and move on? Like, wouldn't that have been enough? And Chassidus talks about that really what was in all the physicality that they were taking, what was in the gold and the silver that was there. And Chassidus talks about that the sparks of holiness that had fallen into the world, the majority of them were in Egypt. When Yosef feeds everybody, he's really gathering the wealth of the world into Egypt, not only the physical wealth, but all the spirituality that is hidden in every single item that people have and people own. He's pulling it together. He's bringing it into one place. And so when the Jewish people leave Egypt and they borrow silver and gold and different things from their neighbors, they are in fact taking all the spirituality and all those little sparks that had fallen into the world, and that is really what they're taking. So it's not just that they're getting physical wealth, which they were, but the bigger thing that was important was, what was the point of Gullus? What was the whole point of going into Egypt? Not just to smack them down, but the point of the whole exile was to come back enriched spiritually, not physically. Okay, we're not knocking the physicality, but not only physical, but more importantly, that we should come out more refined and more spiritual. And that was really what they were doing. All these things that they were gathering were in fact taking the sparks of holiness and bringing it out with them and bringing it towards their service of Hashem. We are shockingly enough, but we are okay. So then we have the conversation of Moshe telling Paro about the plague of the firstborn. But chapter 12, and this is where I want to stop for 2 minutes, because I think we're pretty much, that's where we are. Chapter 12, we have the first mitzvah. Okay, Vayoma Hashem Moshe ve'Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim leimor hachodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chadashim Rishon hu lachem l'chodshei hashana. So Hashem says to Moshe that this month should be the head of the months for you. It's the first month of all of the year. Okay, and then then Hashem continues and talks to the people, talk to Moshe and Aaron to speak to the people, to tell them that on the 10th, tell them on this day, that on the 10th of the month, they should take a lamb, take it into their house, and in 4 days, on the 14th, they should slaughter it, and that's going to be the Korban Pesach, and to put the blood on the doorpost, the lintel, I think it is. And all the laws of Korban Pesach that are going to continue, and we're going to have some of Pesach, some laws that are just for Mitzrayim, and later on we're going to have laws of Pesach for the whole year, for generations. But here we have the mitzvah of Chodesh Zelachem. Now, if you remember, and of course I forgot to bring my Chumash with me, the first Rashi in Bereshis. First Rashi, Bereshis Bar Lakim, it says, don't want to misquote it. It says that the Torah should not have started with Bereshis. It should have started with HaChodesh HaZelachem, which is the first mitzvah. That means all of Chumash Bereshis and the first 11 chapters of Chumash Shemais are lead up to this place of the first mitzvah that Hashem's. And so, like on a certain level, you could look at all that other stuff and say, oh, that wasn't really, that's just prelude. That's just like a very long introduction to the story. But no, we need the introduction to Torah, the introduction to mitzvahs, the introduction to a relationship with Hashem is all those other parts of Torah, which we look at and say, oh, such nice stories. But actually, they're teaching us incredible midas and behavior and emunah and all different kinds of things that we need as a prelude in order to have a relationship with Hashem. And that's, so it's just interesting when you read that first Rashi and say, oh, the first mitzvah, the Torah should have started by HaChodesh HaZelachem. Well, here it is, right here in our Parsha is HaChodesh HaZelachem, and this, and it's, and like you think, wow, like that was a lot of words that Rashi saying, why are they here? And Rashi actually says there to tell us about the greatness of Hashem, to show us that Hashem rules the world. He can do whatever he wants with it. He gave us Eretz Yisrael, and when the nations of the world are going to come to us and say, because you stole this land from us, we will look in the Torah and we'll say, Hashem gave it, he created it, and he gave it to whoever he wants. He gave it to some people, took it away, gave it to us, and now it's ours. So that power, is also something I think is very important for us to have, that power of response. That's what Rashi brings over there. But over here, we're also talking about the place of, for ourselves to say, Hashem rules the world, Hashem's in charge of everything. And, we've spoken about this many times in classes, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but really, really, the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of all the Jewish craziness, because essentially what are we being asked to do, right? Essentially, we're being asked to create the most complicated calendar that exists on the face of the earth. We have a lunar calendar, like the Muslims go with a strictly lunar calendar. The rest of the world goes by a solar calendar. The Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar. And we are asked to merge the two of them. We are being asked to have the ebb and flow of a lunar calendar and all that entails with the steadfastness of a solar calendar and the reliability and the everyday, the same, the commitment and the steadfastness. It's not like you get to pick one. Hashem's like, should we do this or this? Oh no, we're going to do both. So it's not just enough to show up every day and do what we need to do, which would be the sun, the solar calendar. It rises and it sets, and it's steady. And then you have the moon, which is creative, and it's up and it's down. Okay, we know it never really disappears, but how much of it we see is constantly in flux. It's constantly, and to have that place of how we feel about our relationship with Hashem, today we're feeling more inspired and tomorrow we're feeling less inspired. That's all moon stuff. Now, we know that practically speaking, the difference between them, it's about 11 days and change. So if you're on a strictly lunar calendar, you would constantly be losing time. After 3 years, you would lose a little bit over a month. And so we have this. So because we have this injunction to have Pesach in the spring, we're constantly playing with the two calendars. So essentially, it's a 19-year cycle for our calendar. We have 7 leap years in the 19 years to kind of keep adjusting to make sure that all those things stay together. But on an emotional level, what does it mean? It means like it's not just enough to like just show up and do our mitzvahs and be there steady as every single day. That's the sun thing. But there's also the place we're being asked to be moon and to be innovative and to hear where we are and what resonates with us and what we want to do and how we want to do it. And yes, we have to do both of them. Meaning the days that we wake up and we're not inspired or we're not interested in moving or we're not interested in, showing up to life, then we need to tap into the sun part of our calendar and say, but I'm going to do it anyway. But the place of saying, I'm going to just do it, and I'm not going to pay attention to how I feel about it or how I can do it better or how I can make it mine and how it can be personal, that's also not. Meaning we need to have both the sun and the moon working together, which obviously makes our job that much harder. So Baruch Hashem, never dull moment. Okay, we are out of time. But the Parsha is going to continue with the laws of Pesach and all different kinds of stuff, and the actual conversation of the Jewish people leaving Egypt. It's like it just happens, after all this, the years of the slavery and the thing, and all of a sudden, boom, here it is, and it's happening. And it talks about how in the middle of the day, the Jewish people leave, and then it goes and it recaps laws of Pesach for, like I said, laws of Pesach for generations, because they did some things differently in Egypt and some things differently there for later. And we have the other mitzvahs that are going on. I want to give us all a bracha that the place of our work and our input is very real and very important. So the first thing that we have to know is Parsha's boat. We're never doing it by ourselves. We're always with Hashem. Hashem's always there to help us. It helps if we open up and say, Hashem, please help us. But he's always there with us to help us. And our actual redemption happens in a second. It really could happen in the blink of an eye, like when we're in the darkest place and we think that we can't go further and we can't do more, all of a sudden that's when it's going to come through. So I want to give us all a bracha that we look to ourselves and that we are honest and that we are humble enough to understand that we need to be able to see each other. We need to be able to not be so wrapped up in our own lives that we don't see the pain and suffering or the need of, even if it's not great suffering, but the need of people around us, because that's actually how we actually affect redemption. When we can reach out of our space for somebody else and to help them with what they need to be helped with, that is a place of redemption. Have an awesome rest of the week and a great Shabbos. Let's do one more piece.